Raquel, my green witch, welcome back to the podcast. It's been far too long.
Oh my goodness. It's so amazing to be here with you. I love being here. Thank you for the invitation.
Yeah, we got so spoiled with having you as our season. You know, we did those wonderful seasonal portals with you last year. And the summer solstice, we're doing this recording right after it. And I was like, it's been far too long. How has it been this long since Raquel's been back on the show? But the beauty now is that we can explore all of the different aspects of, you know, building spiritual relationships with plants that aren't necessarily tied to the seasons, which we were kind of very strict about last year. So since we last chatted, I'm so curious, like what have you been up to? How have you been continuing to develop your green witch skills?
Ooh, I'm trying to think. When did we last chat here? I guess it was was it winter solstice? Yeah, so it was winter solstice. So I think the most exciting thing that has come out since then is I launched my online community for moon magic. It's called Intuitive Moon Community, and that's been really fun. That was like a good 9 months in the making, nice 9-month gestation period. And that's a community where I share more about my moon information, and we circle up virtually for every new moon and full moon. And then we also have expansion opportunities, which are like ongoing spiritual and just personal development classes. And it's just a really great space. So that is now alive and out in the world. And if you're interested, please check out Intuitive Moon Community. It's only $22 a month, and you also get the first 21 days free as a trial period. And because we circle up for every new moon and full moon, within that 21-day trial, you will get a moon circle to attend as well.
Amazing.
So check that out. And then I'm also doing a lot of one-on-one work with clients, students within my practicum group, which is like the second round of my intuitive magic group. I'm going to be launching intuitive magic. Again, we'll talk about that later at the end of the summer. And one of the things I'm really excited about right now is I'm building a Reiki mentorship program, which I'll probably be launching toward the end of 2025 to attune more people to all 3 levels of Reiki, level 1, level 2, and masters, along with animal, or what I like to call tree of life, nature Reiki as well. So that's in development.
Yeah, you do.
In development.
You have so many skills. Like, I forget you're like a Reiki master and, you know, the moon, like a moon expert, and, you know, this incredible intuitive when it comes to nature and advocate for the earth. Like, you really do so many different things, which is why I love always having you on the show, because we always have something new to talk about. And what about for you personally? Like, what has your relationship with nature and plants looked like personally in the last couple of months?
Such a beautiful question. Thank you. I really have been coming back to my relationship with nature a lot for the last few months from a more kind of therapeutic mental health standpoint, which I don't know, Maria, maybe you've been feeling me on a little bit, but I've really felt like I've really had to come back to nature in a very like, please just hold me kind of way over the last few months. I think just with everything going on in the world and the instability and the confusion and the just kind of propensity of hatred that is growing and chaos, it's been very difficult as someone who, you know, taps into the collective and just feels things really intensely. Sometimes I just find that I have to just go lie on the ground and just cry or just lay there and breathe just to kind of like reorient and what I consider co-regulate myself with the rhythm of Earth as opposed to the chaos of like human society right now. And we can't help but be tapped into the chaos of human society because we live in it. So for me, I've been very intentionally co-regulating with Earth. And a big part of that for me is my relationship with trees. I've noticed that I haven't been doing as much like hands-on gardening. My garden is, she's blooming, she's doing great, but she is wild, like wild.
Yeah.
Which is always really fun because it's cool to see like what nature is like, hey, you need this, like what nature's giving you a lot of, you know? Totally. But it's really been my relationship with the trees. Like I come to the trees almost daily to ask them for assistance, for guidance, for strength, for momentum, for motivation, for acceptance. And it's really like I've really, really been honing in on using my trees kind of as coaches over the last few months, which I'm really excited about this conversation today to discuss that even more.
Yeah. Well, there are elders, right? So many of the trees have been around longer than we've been around, and they'll be around, or their, you know, offspring will be around. And it is interesting. It's like when I walk out my door every day, no matter how chaotic life feels or no matter how upset I feel, the tree in my front yard is there, like doing her thing, standing tall, going through her, experiencing her seasons or lack of seasons now that I'm in Florida, there is a stability in the trees on my block that I feel really rooted, for lack of a better word, rooted into, that can be really comforting, where sometimes I feel like you don't get that comfort from a houseplant that you've had for 6 months or a seedling, something that has a much shorter lifespan. Like you don't get that kind of wise comfort that you get from these trees, that you really feel their wisdom, you know?
Can I speak to that a little bit?
Please, please.
So I'm going to speak right back to the word that you used, which is rooted into the trees on your block, right? Like you can feel yourself rooting into them. And what you're describing is the difference between a houseplant and a plant out in the wild is the lack of the mycelial network, that interconnection of the roots of the plants with each other. Our houseplants, as much as they communicate to us and give us so much information, and as much as when you pair some of them, as I see so beautifully behind you, they'll get some mycelial network. And now you can even buy mycelial, like, have you seen this? You can and like sprinkle it into your houseplants, which I have done, which I totally have done. But what you're talking about, that sense, that different sense of really being tapped in to something greater, I believe that's the mycelial network.
You're so right. That's so it. And the difference between, I talked about this in a podcast a couple weeks ago, but like how I'm finding that I'm becoming more drawn to the plants that I'm not controlling. There was this aspect of controlling these houseplants in these pots and feeling like that was my relationship because I was able to control their water and control them and take care of them in that way. But now it's a very different experience where you're not in control of them and building a relationship with them. Like that's a very different level of relationship. Not to say one is better than the other, but I do think there's a depth there that's different.
I think there's a level of trust too. I think sometimes when we're so focused on control, it's because we're afraid. I mean, at least that's how I feel sometimes. I can speak for myself. I do think that control often comes from a place of fear, and the fear is coming from a lack of trust. And so when we cultivate more trust, we loosen our grip. And we don't feel the need to control as much.
Totally. So, you know, as we've started talking about trees, let's talk about tree communication, right? Because people can feel really wacky about it. But, you know, have you seen this trending? I don't know if it's on TikTok or Instagram, but it's this trend that's going around that's people walking up to trees being like, okay, touch my shoulder, touch my shoulder, touch my face. And then the trees touch their shoulder or touch their face.
Yes. I've totally seen that. And I've tried it. Have you tried it? I've totally tried it.
I haven't tried it yet because I'm scared, but have you tried it? Has it worked?
Sometimes yes, and sometimes I'm like feeling like I'm forcing it to work. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
but
totally.
When I was out in the forest camping a few weeks ago, I did it and it worked.
That's so cool. So yeah, like these trees are living beings, and I'd love to chat with you about how we can develop a relationship with trees, but also like the science of how trees are already communicating with each other. So when we talk about tree communication, why don't we start with how they're communicating? So can you kind of walk us through that?
Yes, I would love to. And also thank you for offering the opportunity to nerd out on and geek out on the science of this. Because it is like so inspiring. Also, I just want to say, and I know I'm a little bit late to the game, but I'm reading The Overstory right now.
God, that's my favorite book.
I know it is, and I'm just like so into it. So, but if you love trees and tree communication, I highly recommend you read this book.
That they're the main character. Like I've never seen trees not personified like they have a persona, but it's the most incredible book. Oh my God. I'm so happy for you that you're reading it. What a delicious read. It's so delicious to read.
And there are certain lines in there too that I'll read a line and I burst into tears, like literally just burst into tears, which was a little embarrassing on the plane the other day, but whatever, it's fine. Okay, so let's talk about tree communication. All right.
Okay.
For a long time, scientists and biologists believed that trees were in competition with each other. But over the last 30, 40, 50 years, thanks to the work of people like Dr. Susan Simard, and other really beautiful forest ecologists, we have learned that no, trees in forests are in community, they're in collaboration, they're in communication. And they do this through numerous ways. One of the ways they communicate is actually through releasing of phytochemicals, of plant chemicals. They release certain, and this is what we consider scent, right? Like we breathe it in as smell, as scent, but the plants release it as information. So for example, when a certain tree is getting attacked by a certain bark beetle, it'll start releasing scents. Hey, to let the other trees know, start bringing up your defenses. Because a lot of trees actually have some compounds within them that are like antibacterial or have toxins within them that the beetles won't like if they can start creating more of it. So they start releasing these chemicals to let the other trees around them know, hey, I'm being attacked. Get ready. And I know you've talked here on the podcast before about even, and this is not trees, but this is plants itself, the smell of cut grass. When we are mowing the lawn, that smell is the plants saying to each other, they're cutting us.
Careful, beware. Amazing.
Yeah. So what we consider as a smell is a form of communication between plants, first and foremost. And one of the things we know, which is also really cool from the studies of forest bathing, is when we breathe in those scents, they have really beneficial health. They just create a lot of health benefits in our body, especially around stress and anti-cancer cells and lots of amazing things. So not only is it the ways the trees communicate, but it's also a way that we gain better health in our own bodies is through those plant phytochemicals. So there's that way. And then the other way trees are known to communicate and collaborate and help each other is through that mycelial network, is through their root structure. And it's because as they send their roots down into the ground, they create this symbiotic relationship with the fungi that live under there. And the fungi create these threads that connect the roots of the trees with other trees, with their own progeny, with other plants, and they're able to send water, they're able to send sugars, starches, they're able to send information, and they're able to receive as well. And it is a way that the trees form community. It's the way that we understand that a forest is not a place of competition, but a place of collaboration. And it's a way that we understand that if we do not protect the levels of diversity within these areas, we will no longer have the layers of interconnectedness and the layers of health and function that is actually meant to be there.
Yeah.
So that's part of it. Now, what's really cool is with some of the use of AI and technology, there are people out there who are actually starting to learn how to translate the movement of water, the movement that occurs within the trees into sound, into tone, and into words. Are you familiar with something called plant wave? Have you heard of plant wave technology? Yeah. Okay.
It's so cool.
It's so cool. So if anyone hasn't heard of plant wave, it's basically this technology you can use where you put a sensor onto a different leaf and it puts it through kind of like a synthesizer and it starts playing it as a music. And what it's doing is it's actually reading like the movement of water from the plant cells in the leaf or in the stem or wherever you put the little node or the little reader on, and then it turns it into some kind of music. So it's really incredible to kind of hear the movement of plants as a song or as a certain vibration, a certain frequency. The Trinity College in Dublin is doing some really cool research with AI where they're basically like hooking up nodes to the trees to get bioelectrical signals from the trees, like how the water's moving, what it's taking up from its roots, and then it's turning that into human language. And I saw a clip of this, I think it was somewhere on social media, and it was basically saying like the tree's like, I am this years old. I feel the water coming up from my root. Like it was like this old wise sage voice, but it was basically just describing kind of like the movements the tree was doing. And I am just really, really interested in that. I want to learn so much more about that. And what I also want to do is kind of compare what they're getting from AI and what they're getting from kind of those bioelectrical signals from what someone can intuit from the tree. Like the way I communicate with trees, which is way more through intuition, connecting in through my own roots, feeling the tree's energy, opening myself up, which we'll talk more about, to how the tree wants to communicate. I would be so interested in seeing how those two things pair.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's such a scope. It's such a span of opportunities to gain awareness. I mean, I want to go back to just the fact that trees are sharing resources with each other under the ground. Like, how many times have we walked through a park or walked past a tree and like not really processed that this tree is a living thing? There is water rushing up and down the xylem and phloem And through this mycelial network, like the mom trees pump sugars to the baby trees because they can't reach the top of the canopy yet. So they can't photosynthesize as much as the mom trees can. Like it really is this community, and there's science and there's all these cool maps Suzanne Simard is responsible for, and many other scientists, that show these mother trees in the woods and how they are like the super connectors of the whole community, like ecology of the forest. That in itself is crazy, you know? And then you can introduce AI, and then you can introduce our intuitive interpretation and communication with them. Like there's so many different levels of studying this communication. But I feel what I want to ask you is like, how do you start opening your eyes to it? So, you know, there is that one moment of like, wow, looking at the tree and really thinking about all the things that are happening that tree is doing. But, you know, for someone who wants to deepen their relationship with trees, like where do we start? And what are the different ways that we can be growing our relationship and our awareness, I think, of them?
Yeah, yeah. It's a beautiful question, and I honestly think the answer starts with the awareness. I know you talk so often, both in your book and here on the podcast, Maria, about plant blindness, right?
Yeah.
And how
Yeah.
so many of us, I went, as someone who studied ecology and taught about nature, I had plant blindness for years, right?
Yeah.
So
Most people do, yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I knew in my head that they were alive, but I didn't know it in my being. I didn't know it in my experience, right? So I think first and foremost, when you start noticing a tree, when you're like, I like that tree, or like there's a certain tree on your commute or around your block or around your home that you're just drawn to, I just want you to know that tree's already communicating with you. You
So
being
the
drawn
attention,
to
the noticing is communication.
it's communication. It's one of those things that I always like to talk about where it's like, it doesn't matter whether you're aware of it. And this is one of the things we love about plants. They're so generous. They are constantly providing us life force through oxygen and through their presence, through shade, through their life force itself, through their aura. And all we need to do is just be aware and open ourselves to receive it. Always communicating with us. Always. We're just not listening. And so the listening begins with the awareness.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's like three people in a group could walk down a street and all three of them might feel drawn to different trees.
Yes. And that's your aura and the tree's aura creating a match, creating a connection. Yeah. So it starts with that awareness. And then from there, it moves into intention, right? So if we have an intention, I want to deepen my relationship with this tree, we will already begin to deepen our relationship with the tree. And that can look like so many different things. If you have the ability to physically go be with the tree, go be with the tree. That's how it's going to start. Sitting by it, sitting underneath it, pressing your back up against it, just allowing yourself to be in its presence and noticing how you feel when you do so. So first and foremost, before we even start being like, I'm going to tap it and hear what it has to say and really connect intuitively, we first want to notice, how are we feeling? How are we feeling before we have the connection with the tree? How are we feeling during the connection with the tree? How are we feeling after the connection with the tree? And this is very important because our intuition often communicates through us through felt sensation. Our minds are going to want us to be like, I'm having a full-on conversation with this tree. That's not usually how it's going to happen at first. And I don't want people to feel like they're not doing it right when they're not like sitting there like having a full-on conversation with the tree.
You could be setting yourself up for serious disappointment if you're like, I'm going to communicate with this tree now, and you don't hear language, you know, you don't hear English coming back to you in that communication.
Right. Right. And that's why it's really helpful to understand how intuition itself communicates, because the ways that trees communicate to us is through our intuitive channels, right? And each of us are a little bit different with that. For some people, they might really hear words and phrases because they're very highly clairaudient. Some people might get visions, might sit by the tree, close their eyes, and see images in their head, colors, different things come up because they're highly clairvoyant. Some people might sit by the tree and get a lot of sense in their body, feel themselves ground me, feel their spine rise, feel the way the tree feels because they're highly clairsentient, they're very feeling. And some people might sit by the tree and really get downloads, like just downloads of information. The tree sending it information about how it's seeing the world, and they just get like these downloads, which is more the claircognizance of just kind of knowing. So in my experience, the way go ahead.
Oh,
go ahead.
I just want to say, I'm a graduate of Raquel's intuitive magic course, and this was such a mind-blowing lesson for me. I mean, you just gave us this really beautiful high level, but I think when it comes to cultivating intuition, a lot of people think only clairvoyant, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or clairaudient. Like you have to hear it or you have to see it or you're not intuitive. And one of the brilliant things in your class, probably one of my favorite days in your class, was just you going through, I think there's like 9 different types of, all of these different ways that you can be connecting with your intuition. And for me, I am a download person. I just get, boom, I know it, it's done, it's there. And I always knew it as like a gut instinct or whatever, but I didn't even connect that like that's my intuition, because I'm like, okay, well, I'm not hearing any, you know what I mean? Like I'm not seeing the vision. I'm not doing all of these different things. I'm not doing it right, quote unquote, which is like so classic me. But anyway, so I think it's important for people to understand as we approach building relationships with trees that it is going to look different. And like that clairsentient, like sometimes it's feeling where in your body is this feeling and what chakra does that, connect to, and which is the chakra is a whole different class in your intuitive magic course, which I also loved. But I think it's all so enlightening, and it really does just open you up to the ability to communicate on a deeper level. So anyway, just needed to say that, give you a shameless plug for that course, which totally changed the way I interact with the seen and unseen world. You were saying you have to figure out how you're going to receive messages and send messages to the tree. And then, so say, I have a tree that I feel drawn to in, the local park that I go for a walk in. Like, how would you suggest I start, shimmying up to it and developing a little bit of a relationship with it, asking if it wants to be my friend?
Yes, I love this. Well, first and foremost, if there's a tree that you're like, I want to go by that tree, usually that tree is calling to you. So you can first ask permission, like, oh, can I come connect with you? I find that for a lot of people when you're first starting, don't bother asking that question because you won't understand if it's saying yes or no. Like you don't know yet, right? So just trust that if you feel called to a tree, it's because that tree is calling you. Like let's start with that.
Okay.
Like, we'll start with the trust right there. So the way I started working with tree communication, and I'm just going to share my experience because it has worked for me, but I just want everyone to know there's like infinite ways. I don't want you to feel like this is the only way. There's so many ways. And obviously follow your own intuition. That's always my biggest takeaway for everybody. But the way it worked for me was actually going up to the tree, placing one hand on the tree, usually my right hand, and usually my left hand goes over my own heart. And first I connect with my own heart. I feel the rate, the rhythm, the pace, the frequency of my own heartbeat. That's the first kind of interoceptive thing that's happening. Then I focus my attention to my hand that's on the tree, and I wait until what I feel is like a pulse, almost like a heartbeat, like a pulse within the tree itself. Now I know you're going to be like, what? There's bark. There's like, I'm telling you, you will feel it. It's an energy pulse. And if you just wait long enough, stay breathing, you will feel the pulse of that tree's heartbeat or movement in that hand. Once I created that connection, when I felt that kind of pulse in my hand touching the tree, then what I would do is just say, thank you for this connection. Please share with me whatever you want me to know. And I would just stand there and open myself to what wants to come through. And I do want to share, for me, different trees communicate in different ways because I utilize almost all of my clair channels. I have some trees that communicate to me very visually. I have some trees that communicate to me very sensorially. I have some trees that communicate with words. And I have some trees that communicate with just like downloads. So, and that's kind of cool because you can get to feel like the difference from the ways the trees want to communicate. But at first, I would just say hand on heart, hand on the tree, and just stay there and stay open to what happens within your own body. What I felt at first when I would connect with the energies of trees was always a lengthening of my spine. Like I almost felt like my alignment would get better. Like I would like stand up a little more straight, like get better alignment. My spine would feel like it was growing. And then I would often feel a sense of presence and a sense of acceptance and a sense of everything is fine. So I would practice like that. Really, like that would be my practice for months. The first like year I was really communicating with trees, this was my practice. This was my way. Hand on heart, hand on tree. And I still do it that way sometimes. One of the other ways I really, really love connecting with trees right now, and this is something you can do not physically with the tree. This is something you can do just in your own space mentally as well if you have a specific tree you want to communicate with, is actually down through the roots as well.
Okay.
What I do for that is I imagine my own energetic roots extending down into earth, and then I call upon the roots of that specific tree and I merge them. And I envision, this is through breath and guided meditation and just guided visualization, I envision them coming and wrapping around each other and the mycelial growing between, and I open myself to, what does this tree want me to know? What is it sending to me? I can send it questions. And so I can get information that way as well. And that's a really way to practice it when you cannot get physically close to the tree. I do have a tree that's one of my quote unquote mother trees. I call, and if you have seen my book, Self-Care for Eco Anxiety, I do have a practice that's all about mother trees and talking about mother trees. So I call trees that have spiritual connections to us our mother trees because I think they're fulfilling that role. And one of my mother trees is this beautiful, I think she's an oak. I call her grandmother tree. She's this beautiful old oak that's on this field that I walk by every day, but I can't get to. It's like private property. She's big. Her branches at the top are always bare. She's got her canopies lower on, and she's always got like hawks or birds, or she's got things in her a lot. And whenever hawks are in her, I know I have to stop because usually the hawks want to tell me something. So that's like a little way we communicate. I've been communicating with her since 2019. And this tree is probably one of the few trees that literally like reached out to me clairaudiently and just started talking to me on my walks. I've never been able to physically touch this tree. Not once. And yet she is probably one of my greatest teachers for the last 5 years.
Is it when you're finding your mother tree or when you're finding your special trees that you're going to communicate with? Like when you're saying there's different trees that I ask different things or that I go to for different reasons, is it she's an oak tree and oak is in herbalism, or, you know, oak is representative of this, and so I go ask her for what oak represents? Or it's more intuitive of, no, this is just a special tree for me in my energetic field, and it doesn't matter what type of tree she is. This is just my mother tree.
Yeah, it's more the second for me.
Yeah.
It's definitely more the second for me. Once I know what she is, I'm like, oh, that's cool. And you can know more about her. For example, my fig tree down in my backyard, who I requested be very present with me for this conversation. And like, you know, I feel like I'm kind of channeling her a little bit. Knowing that she's a fig definitely speaks a lot to her personality. Because she dances. I mean, she's a dancer. And she's just such a lover of life and movement and me, which I'm so grateful for. She loves me, and I'm so grateful for that. I can feel that very strongly from her, and I love her very much in return.
It's kind of fun, like not knowing originally, because I will say as a houseplant enthusiast turned nature lover, like I don't know a lot of the names of the trees or the types of trees, particularly now that I'm in Florida where everything is different. But even I had this, you would love this episode. I'll send it to you if you haven't listened to it. But I interviewed the founder of Lotus Way, who is a flower essence specialist. We were talking about different plants and flowers. And when I did the interview, this plant behind me was in full bloom. And I was telling her about how it's like spiritually significant to me. And she was like, yeah, that plant is all about legacy. And like, she was just sharing a few things
Christmas
that I was
cactus,
really,
right?
Yeah, Christmas cactus that I was like really thinking about. And I didn't know that's what the Christmas cactus was, right? Like it was actually frankly gifted to me, but like I didn't know the significance of that, but I knew that I was connected to this plant and that it was blooming for me in an unusual time and all of that kind of stuff. And so it is kind of fun just to let your intuition bring you to whatever thing you're doing, follow your intuition, trust yourself. And then it's fun to be like, oh, let me go take a picture of this and look it up on iNaturalist or, you know, whatever app it is to figure it out. And then go look up the meaning of that tree, you know? And I feel like this another, not to like keep going back to intuitive magic. I literally took this course 2 years ago and I still refer to it all the time. But you talk about animal signals too. And, you know, I had that crazy thing that happened in my house a couple weeks ago where I had 22 ducklings on my roof, and I lived in the moment of those ducklings. I was like living for those ducklings, and I had that whole thing. And then my brother-in-law actually like typed in, what do ducklings mean, on ChatGPT, and we like went down this deep rabbit hole of the meaning of these ducklings. But I wasn't like, I didn't know the meaning. It's more that I was very receptive to this experience with these ducklings. And then later was like, whoa, that's so online. Like that's so true and real to me. So I do feel like for anyone who is listening to this episode almost tentatively being like, I don't know about this tree communication thing. It's like, you don't need to know anything. Like you just have to follow your gut, and which by the way is your intuition if you're like me and like you did not make that connection originally. And, just like go along for the ride, and like do to whatever extent you want,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even if listen, you and I, we're going to dive into the aliveness of nature and that we can connect with it and we can communicate with it. And we can open ourselves to it. For those who don't want to open to that, like even just opening yourself to the fact that being around trees reduces your stress, helps you breathe the breath better, oxygenates your blood. Like there's just so much good that comes from putting your body in connection with the body of trees, right? And we can look at like that as communication too. Like our body's response to each other is communication. It is a form of communication, especially when we understand that most of our communication is nonverbal. I mean, as humans, we're so used to thinking like everything is verbalized, but so much of what we communicate is in the twitch of our eyebrow or the way that our shoulder either goes up or down, or, like we see it, the body language, the facial expressions. There's so much communication that happens in that way. And yet we're thinking as though we're not in constant communication to the world around us. So I think if we can
we're non-verbally communicating all the time.
All the time. Even the way you step outside and you feel sunlight in your skin and you just take a moment, that's communication with solar rays. It's all communication.
Yeah. And I feel like I've used this tool before. If I'm in like a large group or something, or I'm feeling overstimulated or whatever, I'll come home and just put my feet on the earth. Or for me, I like to put my back up against the tree. And it really is a way to just like send it back.
Well, I was doing a breathwork class in the desert at the Joshua Tree Music Festival, which we go to every year. We have all these yoga classes and breathwork classes. It's super fun. It was one of my first, this was probably 5 or 6 years ago. It was before COVID. It was one of my first breathwork classes ever. And if you haven't done like an intense breathwork class, it can really like take you kind of out of your body. Like if you're doing intense breathwork, like where you're kind of hyperventilating yourself and like my hands were like shake. I was tingling. I felt energy moving off my hands. Like, when you're in a car and you do this out the window with the wind?
Yeah.
I felt crazy amounts of waves of energy, both leaving and entering my bbody doing this breath work. And as it was ending, like I was still like my body was like shaking. I was like, I was standing up and I knew I had to ground, and there was a tree right outside the big tent that we were like doing the breath work in. And I like crawl over to this tree because I can't even like stand fully up because I'm like, my hands are just shaking. I'm just waving like vibrationally. And literally I just touched the tree and I just felt myself I felt the energy waves just start to settle. I felt myself ground and I could like get up, but it was intense. It was my first breath work class. And I literally needed this tree afterwards to like get my energy grounded again because I was vibrating just so intensely. Now I know how to do breathwork without going to that level, but it was intense. And the tree was so helpful. Like so immediately, as soon as I touched it, it was like an anchoring.
I mean, you think about the power of the xylem and phloem and how much fluid it's moving at once and how much, it's defying gravity and going with gravity. And it's like, you can join in, like you can plug into that movement and send it down,
I think that's what the hand to heart, hand to tree is actually. Totally. Like I feel the way my body is pumping the fluids. And I'm intentionally feeling the way you create that movement of life too.
Yeah, so beautiful. It's funny. I'm just thinking like how the term tree huggers, in the 70s was the like woo-woo hippie tree huggers. But it's like, no, there's all the science now that have really proven that it really does regulate your nervous system if you just go hug a tree.
Yeah, and do you know where that term tree huggers actually comes from?
No.
So it came from India actually, because back in like the 18th century, there was a religious community in India called the Bishnois who sacrificed their own lives to protect trees from being cut down. They literally were like hugging them, physically embracing them to prevent them
Oh,
being
wow.
cut down. And then in the 1970s, but it was a bunch of what I believe was mainly women in this area of India who they were going to have forests that were being cut down, and they went and did the same thing. They hugged the trees, they stand there, and they were educating people on the interdependence of, you know, the forests and the humans, and they saved their trees. But they did it by literally making a circle, not leaving, hugging the trees, embracing the trees. So we consider it to be this like very hippie thing, but the origins of the term tree hugger is actually from warriors, people who literally
Very
put their
serious.
lives on the line for the trees.
Wow.
Isn't that interesting, the way that we minimized that word?
Yeah. Yeah, that's fascinating. And it's also a big through line in the overstory. How far along
It
in the book
sure
are you?
is. I'm in the trunk
Yeah.
part right now where like all the stories are starting to come together and it's so
Okay.
good. Yeah.
So good. Oh my God, you're
It's
making
so
me want to
good.
reread it. So I could talk to you about trees forever, but I love this. So, you know, find which tree is calling you, put your hand, do the hand to heart or the back up against the tree, or just start playing around. But I think like a great challenge for everyone listening today is go notice a tree, like go be receptive and find a new tree to notice that you haven't before, or start building a relationship with a tree that's caught your eye already and just see what there is in store. I also think with the trees, there's so many birds, like there's so much life in all these trees too, you know, that sometimes I find I get drawn to the bird in the tree and then I notice the tree.
And I love that you share that because yeah, there's so much life happening in the trees, and I think that's actually a really nice reflection for ourselves and the way that we are also a world, like an ecosystem for so much life inside of us. Like we don't consider the fact that we have billions of like microbes that live inside of us, right? Like we have
Yeah.
little microbes that live on our skin. We have thousands of bacteria that live in our gut. Like these are organisms. These are living things
Yeah.
that live. Like we are the universe to them. Just like that
Mhm.
tree is the universe to whatever might be burrowing within it, living within it, you know? Like there's a reflection there for us as well about our own wholeness that I think is really
That's
compelling and really
beautiful.
illuminating.
We have so much more in common with trees
Yes.
than we have different. Like, that's, I think, the other thing that people don't realize. Like, we both have DNA, we both breathe, we both have, you know, vascular systems. Like, we both have ways of communicating and supporting each other. We both have intelligence. Like, there's so much we have in common with trees that people just do not get. It's,
I think
we're missing it, you know?
yeah, we're totally missing it. It's that plant blindness that you so
Yeah.
beautifully share about.
Yeah.
And I think in Robin Wall Kimmerer's book, Braiding
Braiding
Sweetgrass,
sweetgrass.
which we both adore, and I think has been
Yeah.
a very spiritual awakening book for both of us. I don't I want to make I'm not sure I'm going to get this term right, but I know she was saying that the Anishinaabe, the word they have for trees is kind of like the still elders, like the elders who don't walk.
Yeah.
And that to me is also why for me I very rarely want to call a plant or a tree an it, because it kind of, to me, when you make something that is sentient and is alive and you're taking away its aliveness. And I'm not saying that, trees have genders, although in my book, Everyday Plant Magic, I did talk about some of the masculine and feminine energies that plants give off, but that doesn't matter. You can call it they, them. It's more about just understanding that they're alive, they're sentient,
Living.
they're living. And so sometimes providing a she or he or they or them helps us understand that a little bit more, helps us really connect with the life force of the plant,
It's a
of the
huge
tree
shift.
itself.
It's a huge shift. If you make that one shift, you stop calling them it and you start calling them elders, that is a huge shift in the way that you will see the world around you. Like, end of story. Like, if you start viewing them as your family and as your related ones, like your cousins, your however you want to describe it. But you have so much to teach us. You have so many different offerings. I know that there's a wait list, that you're doing another round of intuitive magic soon, which, I always encourage people to do. I know we've had several listeners go through it since I've gone through it. What are your other offerings? Like, if people want to work with you to kind of deepen their relationship, or maybe they're curious about Reiki, or maybe they're curious about crystals, or maybe they're curious about the moon. Like, you have so many different ways you can support people. So what are all of them, and where can everyone find you?
Thank you, Maria. Well, first of all, you guys can find me on Instagram, on TikTok. I'm more active on Instagram at Our Infinite Nature Raquel. You can also find me on my website, ourinfinitenature.co. I do want to share that in my books, especially in my most recent book, which is Self-Care for Eco-Anxiety, there are at least 2 different practices in there that are kind of guided meditations for connecting in with tree energy. So if you want to go even deeper with your tree communication, your relationship with trees, please pick up that book because there are guided practices that will help you do so in that book. And if you're just interested in just like the energies of different trees, their personality, as I like to say, please check out Everyday Plant Magic, which is my book before that, which talks a little bit more about, the magical qualities of different plants, including some trees. So those are 2 ways you can kind of get more from me. And then in terms of my offerings right now, yes, we'll be opening doors to Intuitive Magic again, probably end of July, starting up end of August. Very excited for our next cohort. There is a wait list. So if you're interested, please get on the wait list because we're trying to figure out the dates now that are going to work for everybody. So get on that wait list so we can be in communication with you. You can find that on my website. I also offer one-to-one sessions, both intuitive sessions, Reiki sessions, and coaching sessions. I have a lot of people who come to me because they want to cultivate their own spiritual gifts. They want to increase their intuitive connections. They want to talk to trees. They want to talk with nature. And that's what I help people do. So I have one-to-ones for that as well. Oh, and my Intuitive Moon community. We shared about that earlier, but if you're just curious and wanting to dive in, learn a little bit more, please come check out the Intuitive Moon community. Low ticket item, great way to kind of get in and start feeling into the cycles of nature. We talk a lot about the moon cycle, but we'll also talk about the seasons in there as well. Come check it out over in the Intuitive Moon community.
I feel like if you're the baby green witch or if you're someone who wants to start building a relationship with nature, that was something I didn't quite realize, which I really benefited from in the pandemic when I started getting more in tune with moon cycles and doing full moon circles and new moon intention setting and just even like clocking. Like now on my business calendar, I have the new and full moon in every month because it's just helpful. I mean, it's how our societies have been living. We were living in alignment with the lunar cycles for a much longer period of time than we've been living out of alignment now because we're so blind. People don't even look at the moon anymore. But particularly as a woman,
which is crazy to me. I'm always looking at the moon.
I know. I'm always looking at the moon now. I'm such a moon lady now. But it really is. It's like it's very simple. It's very simple, practical, and for gardeners too. Like people used to plant and garden by the moon. All these nicknames for the full moons, like most of them are tethered to agriculture. So there's so much fun. And the moon is nature, right? The moon, it controls the tides. Like the moon controls the water and the water is what keeps the plants alive. So that's a really fun. And you are such an expert and you give so much amazing, amazing information. So yeah, that's a great place for people to start. We'll make sure that we have all the links.
Yeah. We'll have to do another episode just on moon stuff.
I need an episode just on moon.
Yeah.
We got to do it because it's a really simple, powerful, free like thing. Yeah. And particularly as women, I mean, I know we have male listeners too, but like for many years, all of our cycles were synced with the moon. Like, there's real wisdom there too. It's just fascinating.
It really is. It's also fascinating and it's also interconnected too, which it makes me just be so happy.
Totally. Well, we'll link everything in the show notes. You are such a delight as always. And I'll make sure that another season, we won't have another 3 months go by without you joining us, maybe to talk about the moon next. But also listeners, if you have specific things that you want Raquel to dive in on in a podcast, DM me because I'll ask her. So if anything
I love
piques your interest, you let us know and I'll invite Raquel back on. Yeah. Yeah,
amazing.
Totally. All right. Well, thank you, my friend. Love you. You're the best.
Oh, thank you, Maria. Love you so much.